Good evening and welcome to Sunday Evening Talks. Today we're going to be having a discussion with a Nigerian intellectual, Emmanuel Agazino. Over to you, Zino.
Yeah, uh, Susanna, I just want to thank God and thank you for having me this night. I feel honored to bring me in. And I also want to thank you for your tireless effort in trying to, try to tell the story of Nigeria and tell the story of Africa, which I know you have done excellently well. And I want to appreciate you for what you are doing, not just for some of us young scholars growing up, but try to build a bridge between the African continent and then America. So it's my pleasure to be here with you this night and then try to do what we used to do before, try to look at, and then talk and chat and exchange ideas. After all, that is what scholarship is all about. We
Okay,
are
well, let's start from the beginning. Where were you born? And tell me about your parents and your
okay.
grandparents.
That's a very familiar story I've told you, often and often. My name is Emmanuel, like you said, Agozino. I was born in Nigeria. Nigeria is this uh, humongous West African country everybody know about. It's always in the news. Nigeria is always in the press. I was born in Nigeria, but I was born specifically on the eastern part of Nigeria. As you know, that Nigeria is it's a continent. It's a country within a country. So I was born in eastern part of the country. And then just like every other young Nigerian, later I moved on to Lagos. Lagos used to be the capital before it was moved to Abuja right now. So I moved to Lagos. I had all my schools in Lagos. I schooled in University of Lagos. I went to School of Journalism in Lagos. Then I practiced journalism. I was a journalist in Lagos. I work in mainstream newspapers, travel all over the country, travel all over West Africa. I had a lot of friends, a lot of experiences about life, just like a journalist, went through all kind of things, meet all kind of people, had all kind of experiences. So that is it. And then eventually found my way before I migrated to the United States of America.
And that was traumatic, wasn't it? You
Of
didn't,
course,
you weren't just, you weren't offered a job. Well, I wasn't born in the United States either. I was offered a job in Philadelphia, and my boss picked me up from the airport. It wasn't that easy for you, I know.
absolutely. It wasn't that easy for me, Susanna. Actually, you said it because I was not just an ordinary journalist. I was this kind of journalist you call the troublesome type. And if you're a troublesome journalist, if you're a troublemaker, you have to, you know, cross a lot of boundaries. You have to offend a lot of people. So because of that, you uh, might not have it very easy, very rosy, just like every other writing a news story. But you are more like an activist. That was what I was. So because of that, you touch on the nerves of people, of politicians, of you know powers that be. So and that is how I had that kind of experience, which actually exposes me to all kind of risks and all kind of dangers. But like the kind of person I am, I went into journalism not just to write story. I went into journalism as an investigator. I wanted to investigate issues. I wanted to deal with issues, which I had always said took me to all kind of places, met all kind of people, all kind of like minds. And then I just said I thank God. I eventually found myself in America. And then the rest of the story continues.
What sort of trouble did you make? It's interesting. In 2009, 2010, I spent a lot of time in Brooklyn. And while I was there, Gani Fanuahini died, and in September of 2009. And a whole lot of Yoruba activists held a memorial for him in Queens, in New York. and Sahore was there. Now, Sahore was, of course, the founder of Africa Reporters, and he was arrested in 2019 when he went back to Nigeria. He's a wonderful person, but he was very much a disciple of Gani Fanuwa Himmi, who was absolutely appalled at whatever was a human rights situation in Nigeria. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, of course, I'll try. And then, you see, that's a very nice and interesting question because actually, the whole question about Nigeria is about of course, which continues up to today, the issue that the Nigerian elites or leaders hypocritically try to pretend that it doesn't exist, but which obviously is the story of Nigeria. You see, from the foundation by the British colonial masters, the question of Nigeria is always the issue of Biafra. If I may say, let me just go straight to the issue of Biafra and the way Nigeria was structured, which has continued to, be a problem to the continent. And then, because actually I took interest in it to investigate it and understand it. And that becomes my story. I pick interest in that. Just like, I don't think I'm the only one, but it is the issue of Nigeria. And I will say it this way. You see, Biafra, the issue of Biafra is always the recurring issue in whatever guy. So as a journalist, I took interest in the issue of Biafra. And then it took me back, as you may know, to why Biafra becomes a very big issue in Nigeria, and then the ethnic makeup of Nigeria. Actually, what happened was that, it's a very long story, actually. What happened was that at the foundation of the country, the British actually did a very big experience. They did the first one in India. And then they replicated that experience in Nigeria. What the British did, they did two practical experiences in the world. They did one with India. What they did was that the Indian continent, they created this huge country called India, which include Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India.
Throw it all in. Yeah.
So they did that for a reason. They actually did that as an experiment. And then they now came to Africa and wanted to replicate exactly the same thing. And they wanted to replicate it in West Africa. You see? So what they did in West Africa, and again, if you look at the history, most of the founding father, most of the colonial administrator of the British that came to Nigeria actually came from India. They worked in India. So they came over to Nigeria and actually experimented exactly. So what they did in Nigeria was to they brought in people of all kinds of races, kingdom that had existed for thousands of years, just exactly what they did in India, and then fused them together. And then that is at the root of the problem. Just like they had problem with it immediately they did it in India. There were problems, they were fighting. Eventually, the Bangladesh went off, and then later, the Pakistanis. So the same thing actually happened in Nigeria. So if you want to understand the problem of Nigeria, it's always very interesting for people to look at that. So in the makeup of that, excuse me, the ethnic groups that make up Nigeria, because of the fact that it was not discussed, it was diverse. So there were problems there, but especially from let me say that all the ethnic groups, there are three major ethnic groups, have over 250 ethnic groups. So you have the Igbos, you have the Yorubas, you have the Hausas.
Right.
So,
and many other groups too, but those are the three. So the houses are in the north, The Yorubas are in the east, and
Exactly.
Igbo
Exactly.
is the
Exactly.
west.
Exactly. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Are you
So,
Igbo?
of course,
Of course,
I'm from
I
the
knew
eastern part
that. But
of the
so
eastern
you
part of
are
the country.
you are the Western group, and the Igbos were the ones that they wanted to the houses, and the Yorubas tried very hard to annihilate in the 30 Months War in Biafra from 1967 to 1970. Now, the issue is, though, that today there are issues, and certainly talking about things that were 40, 55 years ago that absolutely influence how we are today. Can you can you explain my real concern is when I first went to Nigeria in 2007.
Right.
One US dollar was 60 naira. And
Right.
now I just read that one US dollar is now 1750 naira. That is a
Right.
massive inflation rate. That is an
Right.
economic collapse.
Yeah.
So can you explain what's happening? How did this total screw up of the British, which is absolutely correct, bunging all these places together, and then just leaving in 1960 and saying, guess what? We've taken everything we want. Good luck. And then just waiting for Nigeria to implode, which sort of
Oh my God. Yeah,
happened.
you're right. Actually, what happened is that the uh, various effort at building the Nigerian state has been it's just like it's not working. Let me just use a layman language. And then the reason why it's not working is that Nigeria is not a state. Nigeria is like an artificial ethnic kingdoms. Nigeria has not been able to come together and say, okay, this is a state. You know, what I mean by a state is the classical understanding of a state as you have in the West. So in Nigeria, just like in most African countries, you don't have that. What you have is a sort of an uh, ethnic people put all their allegiances on ethnic groups and then whatever. So you don't have a state where people will call a country, you know, that kind of anthropological state as in the Western, you know, kind of understand. So what you have in Nigeria is like, since then, what you have in Nigeria is like uh, people lay more allegiance to ethnic groups. So, and because of that problem, it becomes very difficult. It's very, very impossible to have good leadership. So since then, you don't have a kind of responsive leadership, a kind of government that will be able to, you know, either take care of the development or manage the economy or whatever. What you have has always been like people, group of ethnic groups that hijack power. And once they hijack power, so you don't have what you could describe as a responsible government that will be able to cater. So it's been a story of catastrophe, woes, and then the economy has always been on the fall. So you don't have uh, a state as this is what we call a country. So people lay all their allegiance on different ethnic groups. So what happened is that since then, the country has always been going down, and the economic policies of the country are just like it favors only certain, you know, cronies, politicians, people that are close to power. So because of that, you have this high level of corruption. You have this high level of, you know, maladministration, and then, but it all becomes very worse right now to the extent that if you talk to the people in the country and see how things are so difficult, so it becomes very, 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 you know, the hardship in the country now is so bad. I don't know because I get a lot of calls from Nigerians all over the country and then telling me, you know, things are so difficult. You know, I don't know if you're getting the point I'm making.
Yeah,
Hello?
because when I was there, there were some industries, there was regulation, there were hospitals, there were schools, there were universities. I mean, clearly, the University of Lagos was greatly underfunded, but it was working. I mean, it was a university. There were people teaching. There were classes, there were students. I mean, what has this economic collapse done now? I mean, are universities still functioning? Are schools still functioning?
Yeah, the universities are functioning, but the capacity, their level of functioning is limited. It's just it's like it's a it's just like once you have a bad leadership, it affects every other thing. So the universities, the economy could only function as far as the leadership reflects. It can't go, it can't go beyond your leader. So every other sector of the economy, the country function, but the way they function is that they just don't do better. Let me just put it that way. So the reality of it is that things are so bad. The corruption, the level of corruption, the hardship, things are so worse. In fact, things keep getting worse every year, every year, every year, every year. And then the worst of it is the recent election that was held in the country. As I'm talking to you now, Susanna, if you hear what people go through in the country, you'll be amazed. In fact, the whole of the university, like you're talking, is almost, collapsing. Corruption everywhere. High level of, a lot of things are happening. So it's not as easy as you may think. I don't know if I'm making any point.
See, this is the thing. When you have an economic collapse against the dollar,
Mhm.
what it really means is you can't buy things that dollars buy. But
Right.
you can still grow food. And you can still, I mean, are people leaving Lagos and going out to little patches of country to grow things? I mean, how you won't be able to buy a computer, maybe, or you won't be able to buy a car. But it's interesting. One of the first things I saw when I was in Nigeria the first time was this rusted hulk of a car around the corner. And by the time I left 3 weeks later, this was turned into a beautiful, gleaming car with an engine and it was working. I mean, I was so impressed. So that sort of ingenuity, which of course it's been remarked upon with the film industry in Nollywood, how these movies are put together in a week, for practically nothing. Whereas in Hollywood, it takes like years and years and fundraising and showrunners and in Nigeria, it's just like, well, let's just do a movie, and just take a camera and get going, and there you have a movie. So I mean, this sort of can-do attitude. That's one thing that I've noticed about Nigeria. First of all, I I did download some things that I could. If anyone seeing this wants to know about Nigeria from the United States point of view, you go to CIA.gov and you
Right.
get the Nigeria fact sheet. And
Right.
that is how the United States sees Nigeria.
Right.
You can also go to Wikipedia, which is my very favorite place on the whole internet.
Right.
And you
Right.
can see a lovely map of Nigeria, and you can see that it takes a large portion of the west coast of Africa. There are 53 countries in Africa, or maybe 54. It depends on who's counting and which ones are counted. But there's a lot of, there are over 50 countries in Africa, and Nigeria is the biggest. Is it the biggest country in Africa?
Yeah, it is. In terms of population, it's the most
Well,
populous
well,
black nation in the world.
no, I mean the size of Nigeria. But the population, according to the fact book, it's 233 million.
Right.
Yeah. So that's, it's not as many people as in the United States, but I
Yeah.
believe the landmass is bigger, is it? I,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right. You're right.
yeah,
You're right.
it's a huge landmass. And of
Right.
course, when you look at a flat map of the world, Africa looks like it's tiny, like it's about the size of Asia. But
Right.
actually, you can fit the United States and Asia in Africa. I mean, Africa is an enormous, enormous continent.
Exactly. Exactly. See, what happened is this, Susanna. I just wanted to maybe for the some of our people that will watch this video. You see, if you look at the 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 Nigerian immigrants in Nigerian immigrants in America, their performance so far. Nigerians are one of the most successful immigrants in America, and this is a fact. People know it, and then you see, Nigerians are one of the best immigrants in America because they do very well. You see, crop of lawyers, doctors, professors all over the places. So, but the issue is that why do you have people with this kind of potential, people with this kind of capacity, in America? Nigerians are one of the, like I say, one of the most successful immigrant groups in America. But back home in Nigeria, it is completely zero. And that's what we are saying here. The reason is because of the fact that in Nigeria, the failure of leadership, as it may be, affected so many other things. So because of the fact that in the country, leadership is almost zero, so leadership is not there at all. So what people have there is just like a failed leadership. So you don't see that reflects in Nigeria because the government is completely zero. But over here in America, where people come, where you see that Nigerians are one of the most successful lawyers, doctors, professors, all kind of thing, engineers all over America. So what that goes to tell us is that if peradventure the government over there is a little bit good, is responsive, is stable, what Nigeria could be like, a hope for Africa. And of course, Nigeria, they call Nigeria the giant of Africa because of its population. Nigeria would have become one of the, beacon of hope for Africa. But because of the fact that what we are saying is that it's a complete, opposite. When you get back to Africa, the government is just zero, nothing is happening over there. So it affected so many other
I
things.
understand a rail line was just put in. But for me, though, what really stuck out to me right from the beginning was the lack of a postal service. Now, when the British were there, they put in trains and they put in a postal service. But now there's no post. You can't mail a letter to Nigeria.
Yeah, right.
Which is awful. You have to spend a lot of money with DHL or one other thing or whatever. But I do understand there's a train service that's just been put together. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, but the government is trying to put up train and all forms of trying to resuscitate the transportation system. But it doesn't actually work very well because the country is having a problem of insecurity. So once this train gets to certain part of the country, because of the level of insecurity in that part of the country, so you either run into either terrorists or ambush or militia. So because of that, there's always been a problem. So the train system up till now is not working perfectly because people don't know where they will might get to. So also the post office you are talking about. So the post office too, is also affected because by the sheer level of maladministration. So things are not actually working very well. Actually, what is actually helping people is the fact that you have this new media. Everybody is trying to use the internet, the social media, and whatever to do. But in terms of the old media, like post offices and whatever, it's completely out of order, the country right
It's
now.
all infrastructure. I
Yeah.
remember this was Bill Gates's concern with countries that weren't performing up to a good standard. It's the infrastructure. If the infrastructure is not in place, and which means you have high level and you have lower, less high level and medium level and low level, and everyone knows what their job is, and that's lacking. Although to some extent, I know when I was at the University of Lagos in the Department of Pharmacy, I mean, everyone was trying very hard And
Right.
and they really were. And the hospitals they were testing the drugs.
Right.
There was they're really I was really shocked that when I went from Nigeria to Sierra Leone had zero,
Completely
zero
zero. You're right. You're
infrastructure.
right. You're right.
I
You're right.
mean,
You're right.
Nigeria looked like, the city on the hill compared to
Like exactly
Sierra.
like heaven. Like
And it
heaven.
was
You're
the
right.
same thing. It was the British. They went in. It's interesting. You talked about India. My father was in the British Army during the Second World War. Right
Right.
after all the shooting stopped, he was there for the fun part.
Right.
So he was in India, and then then the British Army sent him from India. He was a doctor, so
Right.
they sent him from India to Ghana, which of course the British Army was part, and then my father wanted to stay there, but the British Army didn't want him. I could have been born in Ghana, it's like what was but that was that, but that's what happened though. The
Yeah.
British just looked, everything was their
Yeah.
playground,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
they owned, and they didn't care
And on
about
that, let me
human.
just make this point. You see, what happened is this. Uh, it was it's a disaster. That's a very that's a disaster. It's actually the problem of Nigerian problem. You see, from my own experience, somebody who has been in, you see, somebody in the eastern part of Nigeria, like where I am from, where I come from, would successfully would successfully be build a one country with somebody in Gabon or in Tanzania. Then I'm making a point. I just want you to, somebody in the eastern part of the country could successfully, let me use Ghana, assimilate with somebody in Ghana, and the two of them could be able to partner and then function and cohabit together. Than somebody from the same country and somebody in, do you get the point I'm making? Just to tell you the the level of the difficulty in trying to cohabit in Nigeria. Somebody in the eastern part of Nigeria could be able to form a one country with somebody in Cameroon that's form a one country and somebody in the same country but the northern part of the country, and somebody in northern part of the country but the same country, like in northern part of Nigeria, would also be able to live and grow in the same country with somebody in Sudan. So because of the fact, the point we are making is that there is a lot of cultural, historical reality that the British never mind. And
Right.
then they now, so that is at the root of the problem. Do you get the point I'm making?
Well, that's how they ruined Palestine too. It's like,
Exactly.
and that's what they did to Australia too.
Exactly.
Captain Cook landed in Australia, looked around at all the Aborigines staring at them, and said, "There's no one here." And that's exactly what happened in Palestine too. And that happened all over West Africa.
Right,
Certainly
right,
Ghana,
right,
certainly Nigeria,
right, 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 right,
certainly
right,
India.
right.
You know,
Absolutely right.
the sun did not set on the British Empire. I mean, when the British Empire existed, the sun, it was always shining somewhere on the British Empire.
Absolutely, absolutely,
Yeah. And
absolutely,
that's,
absolutely.
it's really, I mean, these were my people, and it's disgusting. It's really disgusting.
It is.
Yeah.
It is
So,
because
but it's interesting because, we hear about reparations, we hear about everything else. Well, the thing is, though, that years and years have passed. I don't have an opinion on reparations because I don't really understand. I don't understand it. But, certainly we've got to do something. And I
yeah,
think something is, first of all, understanding that every human has the light of God in them. Every human is a human. And we have to stop killing humans because we
yeah,
don't like where they are. We don't like them, them sitting on land that has oil or gold or diamonds or anything else. I think, Nigeria's The issue too with Nigeria is at the moment we have this new government coming in, and all they
Right.
want to do is get rid of regulations. They want to get rid of government departments. And I'm
Right.
afraid the United States is going to start looking like Nigeria, where you don't have Social Security, you don't have Medicare, you don't have help for anyone. And then, of course, everyone will want to go to Nigeria because no one will want to come here anymore. Well, really? Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's a huge.
that would be a miracle, but I don't think it might happen because
Well, I don't know.
that would be a miracle. That would
If
be a miracle, Susan. Actually, the case, the Nigerian own case is quite enormous. And actually, like I talk to people in the country, and things are so dire. Things are so dire. I'm telling you, because the government there is actually a government of the elite. People just gang up themselves, and then they, you know, sit on the whatever wealth of the country, and they share it among themselves, and then the rest of the people are there suffering and weeping, and then
okay, where does the money come from that
of
runs
course the
Nigeria?
money comes from Nigeria is a monocultural economy. Nigeria produces a high level amount of oil from
Oil.
the
Yeah,
Niger Delta.
absolutely.
And then these oils are, you know, provide a lot of revenue. So what they do is to, try and use the money that comes from this oil and then try to share it among themselves and then make all kind of, you know,
You see, well,
effort.
this is what the war in Biafra was about, because the oil is in the
Exactly.
is in the
That's the
east.
point. Right. That's the point. That's
That's
the
the
point.
issue. I mean,
Correct.
yeah, they really. I mean, no one in the Biafran War was the first time ever that the United States, USSR, and the United Kingdom they joined together in trying to kill Biafra. And they succeeded in starving to death maybe 2 million people in Biafra. And that's something that's not really understood. Um, and
Yeah,
it's
actually,
all about oil. It's just like this thing in Palestine is all about oil too.
right.
Oil and gas, because I mean, and it's the same thing with Ukraine. You,
Yeah,
I
actually, that's the point I was trying to make because uh, the question of Biafra has always been a very central to Nigeria, and then because of that, the country cannot either move forward or go back because the issue of Biafra uh, was to address exactly what you said, about justice, about the social contract of the country, and then again because of the fact that the rest of the country felt that they wouldn't let it be, and then there was that war, and at the end of the war, the eastern part of the country has always been like they are caged. The Nigerian Federation don't want them to actually come up to become like the part of the country. So there is like it's like I say a government policy that once you are from that region of the country, you are not allowed to get to a certain level and then or take some certain position. So the Igbos seems to be like if I may call it second class citizen because they are viewed as Biafra. So like you said, it's correct. So the issue of the Biafra is always there, and it's because of that war, Nigeria is still the way it is today.
do you have any hope for things improving?
Well, I just want to be optimistic. I don't want to say it, but to be very much realistic, I don't think because if you look at all the indices, if you look at all the indices on the ground and the people around power and whatever, I don't think there is hope except if we just want to deceive ourselves. But from the way things are, it's quite it's completely messed up. I don't know, and I'm just praying and believing that something untoward, like the military coup, don't happen in that part of the country. Because if you look at around Nigeria, Mali, Ghana, Mali, Ivory Coast, Niger, and all of them are almost overrun by military now. And hopefully, I pray that they all watch it out because they are all angling around Nigeria. And then we just hope that and pray that you don't have that kind of experience in Nigeria because it will take the country even more worse if you see a military overthrow of the current government now.
Now, on another, I understand you're very interested in art and African art. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I've been apart from my activism and uh, researches and whatever, I also curate and I curate art. I started that when I was in Nigeria, working with prominent galleries where I mix up with a lot of artists in Nigeria. They have a very big body. They call them the Society of Nigerian Artists. And I worked myself into it because I love art. And then I started I started by reviewing their works in the newspapers. And eventually I started working as a curator and then worked for some of the top countries' galleries, prominent galleries in Nigeria. Curated arts, curated for prominent. In fact, I curated for the former U.S. ambassador in Nigeria. I curated her show in Nigeria.
Wow.
And then I did a lot. And that's my hobby. In fact, if you get to Nigeria, and once you mention me, so many people know me either as a curator, as a reviewer of the art, visual art, sculpture, meeting all kind of, up and coming artists. And then it's been a wonderful experience to, the world of creativity, meeting creators of art, all kind of, genres of art. So it's always one of my passion to go to galleries, review art, all kind of things. So I try to paint, but I'm not very much perfect, but I do more of a review of visual arts.
I draw. I draw every day. I love to draw. I'm not great at it, but I love to do it. And in fact, when I'm in Puerto Rico, I'm a member of the museum. It's only about half a mile about from where I stay in Puerto Rico. And
Right.
so I'm there at least once or twice a week. Yeah.
Yeah, Nigeria has a very bunch of diverse, kind of talented young artists, all
Oh,
kind of
yes, definitely.
bursting with all kind of energy and all kind of thing. Like you said when we talking about it, you see, Nigerians are very innovative. We're talking about Nollywood, talking about art, talking about writing, talking about things like that. Chimamanda,
Right.
Nigeria has all this, if you look at their skit makings, their, content creations, it's all over Africa. Their music, they have the best of the musics in terms
Oh,
of,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
Nigeria has that burst of energy.
Yeah,
So,
I knew the brother of Rex Lawson. I knew him
yeah,
very well, and
yeah,
and so I'm very familiar with Rex Lawson, Cardinal Rex.
right.
Awesome, high life. I just love that work. I love that stuff. Yeah, Nigerian
I enjoy
music
Rex
is
last night.
fabulous.
Yeah,
Right from the drums and from the,
yeah.
it's just you're exactly right.
It's one of the evergreens. I love his music. It's quite,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, and Sonia Cousins, I knew him too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Senegal,
Well, I tell
Senegal.
you, I was going to a Nigerian church in DC for a while, and I ended up meeting all kinds of people and going to Nigeria.
Senegal was he's he's a very interesting character, very and then because there is this
Oh, Sonia Cousins, he was so much fun.
he had
He
this
was so
wedding
much fun.
in the
One,
1930s.
yeah, one day I drove him and his wife and his brother and his sister-in-law around DC because he was going back to Nigeria and I think he needed a phone or didn't need a phone or something. Anyway,
Wow.
he goes into a phone shop and there's music playing and he's dancing and he grabs he grabs the shop assistant and he dances with her too. It was just great. And then later on, he was in a parking. We were in a parking lot. This guy came up to him, wanted to ask. A Nigerian man came up to him and asked him something. And then he said, "Well," and then the guy introduced himself, and he said, "Well, yeah, I'm Sonny Cousins." And the guy nearly fell off, fell backwards. He said, "You are?"
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was so
So of
famous.
course,
He was so famous. Yes, that was fun.
it's
That
an
was really
interesting
fun.
artist because he spearheaded this kind of wave of kind of something like protest, liberation songs,
Right.
around during the anti-apartheid struggle and whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so most of his uh, songs are quite known, not only in Nigeria, but all over Africa, No More
Oh,
War,
well,
Uzidi.
Rex Lawson was too. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
in a different.
yeah,
Well, he died in 1971 in a car crash, far too young. But and that was, of course, right after the Biafran War
exactly.
ended.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
But
then,
this,
you're right. He also had some kind of sympathy for Biafra. That's Rex Lawson. He has sympathy for Biafra too.
it's interesting because when I started reading about Biafra, I was just horrified. When I was a teenager in Australia when the Biafran War started, so I knew about it right from the start, from 1967. And yeah, I was 15 in 1967 when it started.
Yeah,
And we kept hearing things, reading things in newspapers, seeing something on television. And but and then these BBC journalists started going to Biafra and holding babies who died in their arms. And then just the horror, the people watching this saying, why are we doing this? Why is the United States, the United Kingdom, the USSR
oh
providing
no,
providing bombs to kill babies?
oh
And
my
this is
God.
what we're asking at the moment in Palestine. It's the same thing. Why are all these other countries causing misery? And that's really the issue.
Yeah, it's a whole it's a very heartbreaking, to see people, all of a sudden wars all over the world and a lot of injustice. People keep fighting and all kind of thing like that. And you ask yourself, when will all this end? I was like, had a friend of mine, two of us were talking like 2, 3 years ago, and he was like saying, "Oh, Agostino, suddenly we have arrived at a period where there is no more war. The world, there's no more war in the world. All of a sudden, what we now see ourselves all over the world. There is war in Ukraine, there's war in Palestine, all over the world. See, so
Sudan,
yeah, it's
Guyana, everywhere now.
everywhere,
It's
everywhere.
worse.
All of a sudden, so you have war all over the world, and then even if care is not taken, we might even go into a third world war now. The way things are going, so everybody should be concerned about it.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, people are not. It's interesting in the election we just had. There are a lot of people who are like one issue voters. People voted in Trump who believed him when he said that he was going to stop food prices going up.
Right.
It's like, oh, yeah, right. We will. Yeah, that's clearly not going to happen.
I think.
But also too, I knew a lot of single issue voters who weren't going to vote Democrat because of the Palestinian war,
Right,
and not
right, right.
understanding that yeah. So the whole and so people have just voted for chaos, which is what we're and looking at Nigeria, which was a functional country
Yeah,
on after 1960 for a few years, certainly. And I understand that even in the 1970s, I this brother of Rex Lawson I knew, I remember him saying that when he came to the United States, which would have been in the early 70s, I think, that it was $3 for 1 naira.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was, there was drug manufacturing going on. There were roads. There were I don't know if there was ever a post office, but actually it was okay for a while. And then with the war that started in 1967, things started
Right.
really sliding down. And when
Right.
the war ended in 1970,
Yeah.
the solution was that instead of three states in
Yeah.
Nigeria, the
Right.
houses, the Igbo land, and
Yeah.
the Yoruba land, they'd have
Yeah.
36. So you
Right.
have 36
Yeah.
governments. So any money that's accumulated goes to 36 governments as well as the federal government.
Right. So it's like you said, the war actually uh, you know affected a lot of things, and then if not because of the war, Nigeria would have been would have gone far, would have advanced so far. But uh, after the war, and the leaders of the country not trying to learn a lesson from the war by trying to make sure that the structure of the country and then things done better, but they, instead of uh, changing and try to bring everybody along, they try to pursue that win the war attitude, and which has not been very good for the country. And then since then, Nigeria has actually uh, not have a good story. And then the point you mentioned, because the war in Nigeria did not only affect the Igbo area, but it also affected the other eastern part of the country, and
Yeah.
everybody is actually suffered from the catastrophe. And then, like you also said, the the situation at in the country now is so dire. People are so not having it very easy.
Did a lot of people die in Nigeria during COVID, from COVID?
Yeah, it's like I don't think it's a lot of people died like that, but I think the effect of the COVID is not as much felt the way it's felt here in America. People always have a way of surviving over there, either by trying to, you know, adjust their lives or adopt some kind of traditional means. But actually, there are a lot of people that died, but not as, as
It wasn't as massive as it could have been.
yes, yes, yes,
Because
yes.
because 10 years ago, of course, there was Ebola in Nigeria. It
Yeah,
was a
the Ebola
huge
was
problem
more
too.
people felt more for the Ebola than the.
Yeah, well, people, doctors and nurses were dying from Ebola, and I imagine they probably did from COVID as well. Because
Right.
yeah, because
Yeah.
you,
Right.
huh.
Right.
I mean, one thing that's always puzzled me is as you said before, there's all these very brilliant people in the United States. And when I used to go to the Igbo Catholic Church which I took you to once
Yeah.
In West Philadelphia,
Right.
which is probably the most educated church in the whole
Right.
city.
Right.
Very, very clever people.
Right.
Um,
Right. Right. There is the Nigerian community here in America are quite, uh, upbeat. They are doing very well. A lot of lawyers,
if
doctors.
they're doing so well, and of course, everyone is sending money back to Nigeria. I can remember I told you this before. I remember saying once it's really expensive to be
Everybody is
African.
because
Because you're sending, you have to send. I tell
yeah.
you, I came from Australia and I've never had to send money to anyone in Australia.
Yes.
And yet people come from Nigeria and, working horrible jobs often.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
And
think
half the money goes back right away to
no,
Nigeria.
I think it's a cultural thing. because of the way the African, society is structured, you are not there alone for yourself. You are there for your family and for whatever. So everybody readily sees you as you are responsible for. So once you make money here, or once you make a little thing, you are a lot of people over there that are expecting you to also. I think it's a cultural thing. People always want you to take care of them, take care of your mother, take care of your siblings, take care of. So I think it's an African cultural thing. So you are not alone. You are part of the society, and that is why people. Although it's not easy, but people always have that at the back of their mind. That look, you are there for us, so you help us. It's not.
I tell you, I have led a
It's a
charmed life
cultural
as a
thing.
British
It's like the
person.
African cultural thing.
Yeah.
Africans always depend on, everybody depend on each other. People got to take care of another person. This one take care of, you have all literally bunch of people around you asking you to, uncle, brother, I need something from you. I need you to pay my school fees. I need you to do this and that for me. I need you to give me money. So, but it is left for you now to, talk to, use your brain and know what you can do.
Yeah, well, one thing that always struck me about Nigerians in Philadelphia and in DC is you can come to this country and never ever interact with anyone who isn't Nigerian because there are Nigerian shops, Nigerian churches. I mean, I
You're
was
right. You're
really,
right.
that's amazing.
You're right. You're right. You're right. Nigeria is this Nigeria is this very big, and people don't know, because of the population of the country is so large that if you, for instance, meet four black men here, likely that one of them might be a Nigerian. If you go to them, walk across in
Yeah.
front of four black people, one of them might be a Nigerian. It's a must, and one of them might be
How
a
many
Nigerian.
how many Nigerians do you think are in the United States? I didn't figure that out.
I cannot say precisely, except I try but I'll try and look it up. But I think Nigeria has a very large, community
Yeah, I
here.
mean,
And
because the population centers, there's certainly Philadelphia, but there's more in New York and there's more
right,
in DC. And then
yeah,
in Houston, there's an enormous number.
exactly. In
And
Houston, they have a
that's the
large,
oil
yeah,
center.
yeah, yeah, well, absolutely. They have a large community in Houston too, and then a little bit in Virginia.
In Virginia. And what
Mm.
about the West Coast? In
Yeah, no,
California?
no, no. Yeah,
Not really.
California, not so big, but maybe some hundreds, like.
It's interesting because in Puerto Rico, I haven't seen any Nigerians. And there must be. Maybe I just haven't. I mean,
That's amazing, because
yeah,
Nigerians
I mean,
are
because
adventurous. They
Niger
always travel to all part of the
probably I'll
world.
go back and I'll see them all over the place. But
that,
that's
that's amazing.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
I I mean, getting back to your art, my great grandfather's brother was a curator in the British Museum.
right.
He was curator of arts and prints, and he's the
Yeah.
one that brought Goethe. No, not Goethe. He was given the Goethe medal for his work
Yeah.
with German prints
Right. Okay.
in 1933, and he was given it by von Hindenburg.
Wow.
And that did not appear in his obituary. I read about it in the Times of London, and then I realized he didn't want it. I mean, he was a spy. He was a spy for the British government because
Really?
artists can be spies.
Oh my
But
God.
you go around everywhere, you do art, and
Oh
artists are
my God.
always subversive. It's very interesting.
You make me laugh, man.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. So I'm very excited that you're interested in art and being a curator. You can, who knows what you're really doing.
Actually, if there's anything that I would like you to explore, because that's part of my hobby is the art. I took special interest in art because of the fact that it's creativity. It's transcend beyond transcend boundaries and and like I said in Nigeria, I came across an industry that you have all kind of young people, established people, all kind of people producing all kind of incredible works of art. So and the gallery, and then the amazing thing about it is that they are doing this not by the support of the government or whatever. They are their own ingenuity trying to create art and then run these arts in gallery shows and in museums and all kind of shows every weekend. So it's just like a big industry. It took me to there's a part of the country called Edo State, Benin. These people had some kind of an old ancient tradition of art, and their art is well known all over the world. So I travel, and then they are very good in bronze sculpture, bronze, carving and all kind of things. So Nigeria has this kind of, uh, huge potential, large market of art. And then it actually inspired me. And when I was there, and then up till now, I still try to, meet with artists and then talk art and do art. And then it's a very wonderful thing. So I want to encourage and I want to, say that it's a nice thing that you also have interest in art.
So, but is this I went to Edo State and I went to Benin.
Yeah,
But what's interesting is the British Museum in London has
yeah,
been asked to repatriate um, stuff that British soldiers stole, like from
right, right,
Greece.
right, right,
And of course they also stole things from Nigeria too.
right,
I mean,
right.
is that going on? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I know because I was then at the height of the debate. I was actually I went to Benin actually by then one of the newspaper I was working for, and I was sent to Benin to talk to the Oba of Benin, the monarch of and then I spent some time in the palace of the Benin, and then I had a bit uh, understanding of what the issues are. Essentially these are rich artifacts, rich arts that were looted there by the British during the, what they call the Benin massacre. And then these works were scattered over, not only in Britain, it was scattered all over Europe. Some are in Belgium, some are in Germany, some are in all over the Europe, even some are here in the United States. So, and then there has always been an ongoing campaign and struggle for but eventually something happened recently, and then even the uh, Germans and then French and whatever felt they should bring back, they want to get back those works. So some of them are already repatriating the works. But for me, my positions is quite different from what I think. My own personal position is that I would have loved. I don't see why bringing it back now makes more sense. But people don't like when I say that actually, because I think for me, those works has become a global, work. It's become a work for humanity.
So they're
Why?
like ambassadors, ambassadors.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
People can always go there and view them because why you bring these things in Nigeria? Nigeria don't have a good culture of infrastructure, and you put it there, people don't take care of it, and not kind of thing like that. So it might end up not be preserved. So by the time you bring it, I'm saying because I know the state of all the museums in Nigeria. It's not something you can encourage anybody to put something there because of nonchalant attitude. So by the time you bring all those things there and put it back in Nigeria, believe me, you mess it up. So it's better people go to London and look at it. People go to Germany and look at it. No, for me. So why do you want to bring it to Benin? Why do you want to bring it to Nigeria? They have a lot of museums in Nigeria. They are not taking good care of them. Let them leave it there.
Well, I remember visiting one in Lagos, which was really
Right,
nice. Yeah,
right.
really, really nice. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Because when I was in Benin, I was given two bronzes, and I was
Yeah,
given a mask, the death mask of the Queen.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
They
at
didn't
some,
have
and at some stage, I guess I'll give it to you. I need to donate it to someone who can
that would
appreciate
be
it.
appreciated. That would be appreciated. If you give it to me,
Yeah.
I'll appreciate
I know, or
it.
give it to
I'll appreciate
the
it.
Museum of Art in
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
That's good. I'll
Somewhere
appreciate it.
where it could actually
Yeah. That
be
sounds good.
useful. Yeah.
That sounds good.
What would you do? You'd hang it in your bedroom,
Of course, I'm gonna hang it in my house and then use
hang
it
it
and
in
then
your house.
be appreciating it. After I'm
Yeah.
a collector.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So there we are. So how we do, well, that's been a great talk. Anything else you'd
Yeah.
like to do? And we can talk about some and at another time too, because this has really been fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what we'll go. We'll keep it up and then
Yeah,
because
well, I mean, my purpose is first of all for you to explain what's going on in Nigeria, and also to see that there is a future in Nigeria, and to also talk about what it's like to be a professional in the United States. And I think you've done a great job of that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, Susanna. And then, like you said, I also pray because if you look at the subcontinent, West African sub region, uh, you you should pray for Nigeria that things get better because if anything happens to Nigeria, it's not only Nigeria, it affects all the other countries all over the place. So we should always try and make sure that and pray and lend our voices to, you know, ensure that things are done better because if anything happens in Nigeria, it will spread down to all over West Africa.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn off the recording now.
I can't thank you enough, Susanna. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. You are a treasure trove. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.